Welcome to the Funded Now What podcast with your host, Andrew Lee Miller, brought to you by Growth Experts. You are in store for a chat about funding, marketing, startups, and all things growth.
All right. Hello and welcome back to the Funded Now What podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Startups, and I'm here with Kelley Satoski, the founder and CEO of Pelva Health, who's just raised $500,000 to help women with a very unique problem, really help couples. Honestly, it's not just women, but Kelley, thank you so much for being here on April Fools. This is real. I'm really
There's
going
no April
for this.
Fool's jokes with this.
No. This is definitely outside of my comfort zone but it's a really interesting, unique tech product. And tell people who are listening that don't know about Pelva Health what your mission is and what you're working on.
Yeah, thanks. Well, I'm excited to be here. Pelva is focused on creating a medical device solution for women and couples, like you said, that struggle with pain during intercourse. So obviously an interesting problem to solve, but really it affects so many couples. I think the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists says 75% of women will have pain with intimacy at some point in their lives. So this is a tremendous market and a very underserved one. So we're excited to be innovating in this space.
Absolutely. And brings up so many questions. So I want to dance delicately around it, but just to dive a little bit deeper on the problem, as we normally do in this call before we get into fundraising advice stuff. Is it like a lubrication problem, or is it because there's obviously non-software and hardware related solutions for that. I mean, we've all seen the ads for KY and whatever.
Yes,
is it something
absolutely.
like that, or these are different kinds of problems than that?
Yeah, so I wish it was just a lubrication problem, right? Because lubes would have solved it a long time ago, because we have so many lubes and vibrators and dilators on the market that are the tools that are most commonly used to approach pain with sex. But the reality is that most women, especially those that have chronic pain, this is more than a friction, and this is more than an arousal issue. Pain is a little more complex than just those things. So what we really are focusing on, we're looking broadly. There are so many reasons that couples will have pain with sex. I mean, you could have gone through cancer and had radiation that's causing scar tissue. You might have endometriosis, menopause, sexual trauma. I mean, the list goes on. You just had a baby. So many reasons, right? So we really looked at, why does pain happen? And how do nociceptors, which is pain receptors in the body, work? How can we keep them from activating during intercourse? So our technology is really focused on not necessarily addressing all of those various reasons for pain with sex, but saying across all of these different issues, how can we prevent pain from occurring during intimacy, so that while couples are seeking treatment and are going through years of therapy, they don't have to sacrifice the intimacy between them. They can still experience physical intimacy and kind of negate all of the mental and emotional and physical burdens that come with either abstaining from intercourse or bearing through pain, and the impact that has on a couple too. So that's really the focus. How can we prevent pain during sex immediately, giving that freedom, healthy intimacy back to people?
Amazing. And I have always publicly said, I think, sex is a super important part of a long-term relationship. We have so much divorce rate and infidelity. And that's when people are too weak to work on the difficult issues themselves. Or, before we started recording, I was saying how I think it's a couple's issue. And I could imagine a lot of men are that's your issue, and not taking it on themselves. And so that'll be interesting to discuss later on the call related to your marketing. But first of all, it's an amazing TAM and, a big problem to solve. And sounds like a pretty difficult thing to develop. So I know that your product is still pre-launch, so we won't go super in depth into that. but it's a medical device, it's hardware, and it's touching a, an intimacy related industry that a lot of investors would be freaked out about. I mean, I jump headfirst into scary things. So I was like, ooh, I want to talk to that lady. I was like, I'm not scared of it, but I could see where a lot of people would be really scared about that. So I think my first question is, how long have you been working on this? Like, it seems like it would take quite a lot of time to develop a solution for this. Like, are we talking years or what?
Yeah, so I think we've been officially incorporated for 2 years, but the first full year we weren't necessarily full time yet. And I think that first year we kind of went through the classic startup situation where you're like, okay, what exists to solve this problem? Dilator therapy. Okay, well, let's make dilators better. So you immediately jump to like, oh, we're just going to iterate and make what already exists better. And I had this call with this woman who is an established startup founder, incredible. She listened to our pitch on making this better dilator. And she just at the end was like, no, like this whole pitch you've been telling me you hate dilators. You need to make something completely different. I don't want you to make anything like what already exists. If you're going to make an incredible startup, $1 billion startup, you need to like completely disrupt the way that we even treat this problem. And so we just like completely scrapped everything. And we're like, okay, let's rethink this. Let's go back to the drawing board and completely rethink how we approach pain. So that was really instrumental that first year. And then the second year, we were all in full time and we developed our MVP and then the more final version. And now we're in clinical studies. So it kind of really quick, like boom, boom, boom.
That's amazing.
Here we are.
It happens when you're aligned. And I know you work with your husband as well.
Yes.
Did either of you have a hardware background, like for developing this product?
Yes. So my husband's a biomedical engineer and he's truly, he's like one of the most brilliant people I know. I mean, he's one of those really heady, like he can figure out anything. If you know him, it's like not a surprise that he just goes for it. So we couldn't do this without him. I mean,
that's amazing. And I'm sure he couldn't do it without you either. I would not.
We're very complimentary.
That's amazing. As you should be in a power couple. That's incredible. But I'm glad to see that's a female founder innovating in this space. I mean, we all know the Spanx story where Sarah Blakely was inventing, lingerie and undergarments for women in an industry that was still dominated by men, which was ridiculous. So this is way more intimate even than that. And I would imagine there are companies, not necessarily in the space, but that's why it hasn't been innovated on for so long is because it's, dudes who are out of touch with the actual people who are experiencing the problem. So that's really cool. Let's dive right into the fundraising then. That's the point of most of the call. And then I'll give you some marketing advice, although not my target either, but I mean, it's not my target.
Discuss.
But so I can imagine you had some door slams when you were trying to raise some money for this. But one of the advice I get from a lot of founders that are on this is like, hyper targeting your investors. I would imagine that might have been pretty easy in the femtech space. That's not a lot of them. Is that where you went to seek out investment, or did you really go to?
You might be really surprised at my response here. So I have so many people that are like, oh, you're going to have such a hard time. Nobody's going to want to like invest in this.
I didn't say that.
Like really prepping me, and I'm like freaking out like, oh my God, nobody's going to invest in me. But I think there are some really important ways, and when you talk about marketing, that Doug is my husband and co-founder, have like approached how we talk about Pelva. We approach it from a very couples focused messaging about intimacy, and most everyone has some tie to that. So it's not just about women and just about this vaginal pain that a lot of investors, being men, don't really relate to. Instead, we talk a lot about the impacts of intimacy and abstinence on couples, on relationships. And truly, I have not had an experience yet where somebody was really uncomfortable and didn't have interest in keeping a conversation going or investing. Our very first venture capital pitch we got. And so it was really like, it was, and they're not like, oh, we only invest in female founders or we only invest in female health issues. It was a very agnostic venture capital firm. Nice. So I think like my experience is probably different than a lot of people's, but I think it comes down to the messaging. And it also comes down to my perspective is that I understand that sex is hard to talk about. And so I don't go into calls with like a defense mode, like, oh, this person is probably going to be uncomfortable and I'm upset about that. I'm more understanding that it's kind of uncomfortable to talk about. And I don't really get upset if someone is uncomfortable talking about it because I get it. It is uncomfortable. So I think that attitude, people like that and feel more comfortable then with us, I think.
Totally. And I mean, at the end of the day, investors, they love having a mission, but they really care about dollar signs. Yes. And if you are innovating in a thing that affects 75% of women, and it's super hard because it's sex and it's med tech and femtech and all these things, that seems like a pretty good bet to me if you and Doug are the perfect team to do it. And I've also experienced the problem, which you've publicly spoken about a lot. We don't need to get all the way into it, but I often do say, you know, myself as an investor, I'm looking for a founder that's creating a FUBU, for us, by us thing, you know. So you have the problem, you go seek solutions, the dilators suck, you start innovating on a dilator, and then you're like, oh, wait, we need to fully disrupt this. I mean, that's a natural pathway to disruption and innovation. And so you have the mission, and I think that's totally right as well. Like, it's great to be a clear and confident voice when people in a thing that people are nervous to talk about talking about, you know, like, I also talk about sex all the time in a positive way. Like, you know, I was telling you, I think either while we were recording before that, I think it's such a vital part of relationships. And I wish there was data on like what percentages of divorces and stuff really come from the lack of intimacy. Nobody's ever saying that. You just say irreconcilable differences. But for me, I was going off topic, but I do that. Lifelong bachelor. And then I met someone I had incredible intimacy with, and we're 6-7 years and still riding on that. And then you figure a lot of the other stuff out, I think. But when you have the ability to both, you know, it's tough for relationships these days. There's the paradox of choice. There's dating apps and whatever. I'm ex-Tinder, and I know that we were part of the problem. But when you have that ability to be so strong together physically, I think it enables the foundation for everything else. And so I think you couple that with the fact that people are going to make a lot of money from backing you, and it's a really easy thing. But that's cool that it was, you know, more traditional investors and not just like people that have invested in other difficult to discuss sexual related concepts. That's really interesting. What are some tips to closing your very first pitch? Because nobody's ever said that. Usually it's like, oh, I had to do 100 calls to get my first check. I mean, was it great targeting, or like, you don't know? No. We're deleting this part. We're going to erase this part. You can't say, I don't know. I brought you on. You have to give some gold to listeners.
Oh, no. I have some gold. I mean, it's crazy. It's more like I'm shocked. I was also kind of shocked because you always, you know, hear what to expect. I think the number one thing is a stellar pitch. I mean, you've got to cover everything that you think, you know, that they might ask. I mean, you don't have to, in your pitch, like cover every single little thing, but be prepared for the market strategy. Anticipate what their questions are going to be. For me, it was, I knew that sexual health marketing is complicated, full of censorship. It's hard to know what your return on investment in ads is going to be, how you're going to approach that. So we had like an entire marketing strategy built out. Like, we're going to focus on this. And then when we have enough traction from provider referrals, that's when we might push more of this direct to consumer marketing, that we're really going to build it incrementally. I think having really solid and believable like answers for all those kinds of questions around the money aspect is really important.
100%. I have a term I need to coin publicly. I call it like the 8-mile pitch. If you're old enough to remember, Eminem had a movie like 20 some years ago, and at the end of the movie, he wins this rap battle by preempting all the mean things the other guy's going to say to him by rapping about it first.
Yep.
And I say that in your pitch. Like if you come to the pitch and you answer, there's
Yeah.
actually not even just in a pitch, on your website to convert users. I consult on conversion rate optimization. And the more you can answer those 5 key questions, the higher your conversion rate goes up. I don't have to search for those answers. And I think what you're saying is coming confident and being ready to answer any of those questions, even if it's not in the pitch, but answering that confidently increases their confidence in you. And that makes total sense. But still, I think, hitting it on the first try. So you just took that first check, or did you go on to further investors? Or you just got one investor?
So we had Groove Capital, which was our lead investor, and then we filled the rest of the round with angels, and some of that through an SPV with kind of their angel network. And then the others were sourced from myself. A lot of them are providers, so people that already work in this space. So that was kind of, I wanted to do that because I wanted to have providers backing us, especially in this early stage. So yeah, it was a mix of angels and one institutional investor.
Very cool. Very cool. Awesome. Okay. Well, I think we can talk a little bit about the marketing. I know you're in product development phase. Do you know, or can you talk about like when you're going to want to turn on the marketing, when you're going to be ready for launch?
Right. So we are hoping to submit to the FDA because we're regulated sometime around August. And so around probably right about now and then the next month, we at least want to start going and really building out our provider network specifically, because our first go-to-market strategy is to really partner with providers, specifically like pelvic floor PTs, sex therapists, marriage and family therapists, not just MDs, because MDs have like lower conversion rate. They're a little more risk averse to new technology. So we kind of want to go to people that are more willing to quickly adopt new products, which 100%. Is the kind of the step under.
I'm not a huge MD fan myself, and I feel like they're motivated to give pills a lot. And this sounds like alternative therapy. But that is a very proven startup strategy. And I think you even mentioned it earlier with the fundraising stuff, like going to market through partnerships rather than spending tons of money on Instagram trying to convince women to buy this for themselves, even if their health care, insurance, whatever covers it, that the ask is way bigger there, as opposed to I'm going to my trusted doctor that's been helping me through this pain for a long time. And oh my God, there's this new thing and you can be part of this introductory study plan discount thing. It's going to be, it's like a referral network but they're obviously going to be incentivized. And I think 80% of startups that I work with, we go to market through partnerships to lower the cost. And then as it starts to work, as you get case studies, you get data, you get testimonials, you get revenue, then you can invest that revenue in building a brand. And you do have a great brand. The name is really great. You could do a lot of direct to consumer stuff, but because it's such a private thing, it's not easy to target people by. I mean, obviously there's some Google search and some YouTube and some SEO related stuff that you could do there. I would start doing that even now. If you haven't thought about that already. Like, you sound like you're comfortable to be the face of this problem that is literally affecting 75% of people, but nobody wants to talk about it publicly. So if you're going to make millions off of doing that. And so, I mean, there's the incentive there, but also to normalize it and really help women recognize that they're not alone. It's a big deal. And there could be, I mean, God forbid, suicides and, obviously divorces and people breaking up that don't need to break up if they realize this is really normal. And so talking about two separate things there. One, I was saying going to market through the partnerships is really great. And you don't need to wait till August for that. You can start reaching out to those providers. Are you building those relationships already?
Absolutely. Yeah. And the clinical data that we're about to get in this next month is also going to be really, really hopefully super helpful in establishing a lot of launch partners, because what we're hoping to see in this pilot study too is not only translation to intercourse, but that our product might actually have use in the clinic with providers during an examination to help reduce pain during, the different examinations that are done in a pelvic floor PT. And so there has been interest from providers on actually them buying it to use in their clinic.
Wow.
And then the thought of like, okay, someone goes in, their provider uses this with them, and provider said, hey, like you can actually buy this and use this with your partner at home too. So then they already used it, right? They have less fear or hesitancy around buying this new product because they used it in the clinic.
Absolutely.
So kind of trying to think how we can make that kind of work towards better sales.
There's so many efforts to make those like, historically cold metal seat, legs up in the air, pretty shitty experience for the husband or the wife.
Yeah.
You look away as the guy, I've been there. And I think like any clinic that wants to make the process and experience as comfortable as possible is smart, because that's going to translate into word of mouth and better reviews for them. Do you know like a price point on this product? Are you able to discuss that? Just wondering for marketing related things.
Yeah. So it is, I will say it's like a subscription product. So it's, we're thinking about a monthly subscription of a certain amount of devices every month, because it's one-time use, and around $50 a month for the devices.
So that's to the provider.
So yeah, that would be if the provider wanted them, we might have a discount for providers to use in the clinics, right? But especially for the direct to consumer, the subscription model would be around $50 a month. At least that's the cost point we're going for right now.
So instead of buying it one off, there's like software that's coupled with it, or what is that paying for subscription wise?
Yeah, so you are paying for 5 devices that you can use during sex, and they are one-time use devices.
Got it.
So you just throw them away after you use them.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So it is a recurring revenue model.
That's interesting. Okay. I wasn't expecting that. I was imagining something like way more hardware that sits by the bed.
I'm telling you, it's hard because you want to make something that, it's a medical device. It's working to help prevent pain, but it has to be sexy. It has to still feel good for both partners, and ideally would be more pleasurable for both partners.
Of course.
And so we're really putting a lot of effort into making something discreet, into making something that feels good for everyone, and that also, doesn't have a lot of cleanup or a lot of work involved with it.
Batteries
and noises and things like that sometimes, Amazing. I don't want to feel like I have to use a medical device. No. I don't even like calling it a medical device, But
it's good that you're going that route, because I also don't want to use something that's gonna interfere with our health or with. But that's really cool. Obviously from a profitability standpoint too, you get to maintain longer relationship with the customer, higher LTV. That's also a very exciting thing as an investor. Probably you use it once and then you're hooked, and then you're going to be a customer for a really long time. And that's like an ideal situation in a subscription business. So, I would estimate an LTV to be in like the years for this. So you can, 2 years is $1,200. So that's a lot. It's awesome. And I agree with trying to make it as sexy as possible, because I'm sure the opposite is not sexy either, like just being quiet through the pain and whatever. And so that's really awesome. So you've got the partnership stuff down. I think I was alluding earlier towards, and I'm normally like the most anti-social media marketer. I always say there's so many ways to grow your business without having to do it for the gram. But because this is a problem that's affecting so many people, I think being a first mover to the space and being an innovator in the space, it does make sense to do like a lot of really public marketing. Like I would even tell you to go out for Shark Tank. Like I would never say that publicly to anyone else, but they do calls for pitches in San Francisco all the time. And this is the kind of company that, Lori and like the other female investor, I can't think of off the top of my head, are going to jump on. And even if they don't invest, you just get a lot of PR out of it.
Right.
So I guess there's two things there. One is starting the PR side and really like starting to speak at conferences, do podcast interviews, which I guess you're saying yes to this. So you're in that vein. This is not as targeted, I mean, unfortunately I have like 80% male audience, but like you said, it's a couple's problem.
It's a couple's problem, and it's
absolutely
very common.
I mean, I wonder if I would hope that you're developing a product that a single woman would be comfortable to use with like a new partner as well, that it's not as awkward, but definitely I think having experienced something similar in relationships myself, that it's definitely, it's everyone's problem, but taking a step back, because I hit like 5 things at once there. Are you diving into social media yet, like pre-launch, or are you going to wait for that?
Not yet, but it's definitely on our radar for like very soon in the next like month.
Okay, cool.
And kind of curious your thoughts on it. The perspective that, especially since we aren't necessarily releasing the product and putting the product out right now, we kind of want to, build up momentum to that, is really focusing, not just talking about what Pelva is doing, about Pelva, but really centralizing stories about people's intimacy, good, bad. Like, it doesn't just have to be, stories of people that have pain, with intimacy. Of course, we want to have lots of stories of people's relationships like that, but talking about intimacy, talking about relationships, all of these things that kind of, circle around our product, and really focusing a lot of our social presence on those things is one thing I'm thinking about. Obviously, still talking about the product.
Love it. I love it. And I agree with you. You don't want to be all sad, and then knowing that's never going to work. So first thing, going back to the social media strategy, I hate social media. I think it's a bane on society. And I'm very comfortable with saying that it's very low ROI for 90% of the companies that utilize it. So what I teach companies to do is create a really easy social media strategy. Like, what you're saying is amazing, but might be a few steps down the line. You're not going to like set up a studio and invite people to come in. And the level of quality that you want will take such a high investment that the ROI will just not be there usually early on, unless you have a lot of capital and you're running ads and building. I mean, it's a years long thing before you get tons and tons of followers. And at the end of the day, as an advertiser and a marketer myself, I'm aware that these are pay to play environments. Like people, when I meet people any age, they're like, I want to be a creator. I'm like, good luck, because you need to run ads. You have to do cross-platform collaborations and all this other stuff. So what I would say to do is create as much content as you can. That's very easy. And we have AI now. We have ChatGPT that can make lots of text content, but you can also do anonymous like stories that people will latch onto that are really easy to compile. You can literally do a Reddit Ask Me Anything or your Reddit thread and have people comment, and I will put you anonymously in our social media posts. If this is something that's affecting as many women as you say it is, should be really easy to gather stories very effortlessly. I mean, $100 in ads on a Reddit post is going to get like 1,000 comments. And then you can utilize that you can use promo.com. You can make like videos out of it. But if it was just text based, people can still read that. I mean, text honestly gets the most engagement like in a video, because people are listening quietly in class and on planes. And so if they can read it, it gets more than just watching it. A lot of people will skip over videos that don't have captions nowadays. And so I would create a strategy that utilizes as easy as possible content that you can create. And then I would just schedule the content so that you're posting actively on every channel. A lot of people overlook Pinterest, but for your target demographic, it's like super ideal. But I still have every client I work with post on Pinterest anytime we're doing the same image on Instagram and on LinkedIn and everywhere, because you do that for a month, then you see the engagement and the traffic that it drives to the website. And then you can devise a more tighter social media strategy after that. and you're months away. I mean, several months away from the product even being launched. So you have plenty of time to just test with minimal time investment, no spend. By the time August comes around, you know your channel, you know the type of content, the features, the things that are really interesting to people, the strategy of content that really is going to go most viral. And then you can probably have another raise after you launch the product and then have more money to invest. But I would say batching content and videos of you being the speaker about this. So you could talk about the problem, how you came about the solution. I mean, a lot of the stuff you talked about here is super interesting and exciting. And I could think of like 5 different videos out of just that. I will send you, my team will send you a video from this podcast, by the way. So you're on your way. You're on your way. But yeah, I mean, like even us, when we don't run an ad on, like we get like 30 likes and I have like 10,000 followers or 30,000 actually. So very, very limited, lower the expectations that if you're not spending money, it's just, they're not showing it to anyone. And then they wanted to hammer you with boost this. That's how Zuckerberg buys his next island in Hawaii or whatever it is. So, but you got to do something, and you can build an audience. You can have it, push everything to sign up to be a beta tester or win our product for free when we launch. I could get it free for a year, something like that costs you nothing. And then, so you want an email list, and social media is like another email list. You want a social media following and an email list when August comes around, even if you're going to go through to market with partners. If you have, 100 or 500 email addresses of people that are interested, you can give them 50% off when you launch the product to get it direct to consumer in people's hands. And these are like the people that are most sensitive and feeling having this problem. So you want to help people as fast as possible. You get crazy word of mouth, you get testimonials. Those early customers end up being the ride or dies for companies. Like at the beginning, I mean, doing calls as founders with those people, you learn so much. I'm sure Doug can learn from them about what the product felt like and this and that, and stuff you can never really get even from a paid clinical study if you're not like physically there. Because, a lot of these female users are going to feel like a part of the company. They've been following your videos, following your mission. And so I think that's what social media can really be used for. On the side of that, also, you should be following Google alerts and hashtags related to it, like a lot, like obsessively, like being super active and commenting. And as Pelva and as yourself, like you want to grow your founder profile as well as this femtech innovator and this person that's, solving this problem for 75% of women. And so really being obsessive, like, I mean, again, like I try to stay away from social media. I don't have any apps on my phone, but I'll do like 10, 20 minutes a day looking at the core hashtags for our business every day on desktop, on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Like that's it. And even that is enough to continuously be discovering new things and be active and commenting. Women are talking about, I mean, I can't even pronounce those bigger issue pronouns that were on there.
Crazy.
Like vulva, I forgot it. I like really practiced before. I was like, I'm going to get this before the call, and then it's gone.
No, it's not even worth it. There's so many of them too. And they all just mean pain in the whatever area it was.
Crazy. Well, there's probably an innovative way you could make those words more like easily understood too. But anytime, it's like the whole thing is ripe for disruption there. So anyway, being the first person to really talk about these things is a huge opportunity. And so I would not wait till August. That's the core key thing I think there. I mean,
Agreed.
like you can do like talks and bring, you've got these clinical partners. You can throw an Eventbrite event up. Have you thought about that? Like doing a virtual event and then you have?
Especially for providers, like when we're getting, so one thing that really has helped us out is that we have on our team probably some of the top providers in this space that have really strong social media presence. And they've also like written the books, on pain with sex, like very well respected. So that's going to be really key, is having their support. And it's already what has gotten us, I think, the amount of support that we have. So yes, thinking about that, can I ask you a question?
Please,
about
of course.
A random marketing
Absolutely.
that I've never, So I'm curious your thoughts on this. Obviously wouldn't be right now or even in the early marketing stage, But what are your thoughts on billboards and the use of them, especially thinking about, okay, sexual health terms are so regulated and censored. What if you used billboards near clinics or OB-GYN clinics or pelvic floor PTs where like both the customer and the provider
Yeah.
aggregate? What do you know much about the return on billboards and like
Yeah.
what are your
So
thoughts on that? I'm just curious.
couple things. First thing is you never want to skip over digital and super aggressively targeted and reported things to go to like offline and out of home. No matter what anyone says, that's not a seed stage company marketing activity. That it's costly. There are softwares that like track the amount of cars that drive by and different stuff, but it's not as easily definable, the ROI in that. And so you want to do it when you get to a stage where we want to really blast our name out there. Having said that, I used to know, I know this Black female sex toy innovator near where my house is in California, and she put a fucking billboard up and crushed it. And I cuss a lot on this podcast, sorry. And
Nope,
I say all of her diversity things because she's super rare in the female sex industry as well, like female focused sex toy space. And like she skipped over many different types of marketing, went to a billboard, and it was, her product is like a super small, like literally it looks like a bullet. And it was like, the thing, and it didn't even have like a website on it, I think. So you can do a lot of things that go against the grain in marketing. But I think like I would be remiss as your marketing consultant if I said, go ahead, let's spend $30K on this billboard. I think like there's a waterfall effect in marketing. And like the first things you want to do are search related spend. So this is a unique problem, but a lot of people might be searching for broad terms like pain in the vagina during sex. Like they don't know that these things, they don't even know that the problem is common enough. So they're like late night husbands passed out Googling. You want to help those people first. And that's not very expensive. That's, again, there can't be that much competition. It's probably local providers only running any kind of ads for that. So if you do geo-specific targeting to the certain clinics there or something like that, it could be like hundreds of dollars only a month, and you will be able to get users from that. The second thing I would do would be expanding on content that works on your social. So paid ads on YouTube or on Instagram, things like that are promoting content that's already resonated organically. That's the second thing I would do. And then, I like the event, promoting the event where it's really low barrier to entry. Women are going to be able to come with their camera off and come and learn and see these providers talk about the solution, but it's sponsored by Pelva. Pelva gets the email list, can discreetly email people. You can get 500 emails for very cheap for promoting. And they're self-selecting the same way with when they're searching something. That's more what I think I would focus on in your phase. As far as paid stuff, I do think there's a huge PR opportunity. There's a huge event speaking opportunity, you going around to these kinds of things. Like, even if it's not like a female tech focused event, it's like going to women's business groups and like, just really getting out there to the places, because it sounds like it's a problem that a lot of people do have and don't even talk about. So being that's what I think I would focus on more early on. And then later when we have big budgets is when I would do the billboard thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. Yeah, absolutely.
Nice. But again, I could be wrong if you, but I, like 500K is not a lot of money. And I'm sure a lot of that goes towards the product development stuff that you have to do to make those clinical trials aren't cheap. I have a lot of questions about that, but I'll save it for offline. But I think that, you can, the going to market through partners is the way, because they're just looking for better ways to serve their customers. And then it's the one-to-many approach. So that's costless pretty much. And then really just building that brand and the awareness around the problem is just a time investment thing. And so, like I said, start out by hacking together all the ideas. Like, I don't do this anymore because I got no ROI of making social media content myself. Because again, yours is 75%, mine is like 0.75%. The amount of people that are on the internet that are startup founders that are funded and raising money that need marketing help is very small. So it was just a bunch of dreamers that are never going to get to where you are already. Congratulations. And so, but what I did to create a low time investment was I would take notes after every call that I would do. And now you have ChatGPT, it's even easier. It can just come up with the ideas for you. But then I would just have like 20, 30 ideas for videos. And then I would sit in one good spot and batch them all out and just literally stream of consciousness, and then send it to an editor, and you get a bunch of 60-second clips, schedule it, set and forget. All of a sudden you go back 30 days and you see what's working. And so this is like the longest answer ever, but why were you thinking about a billboard?
I just am always thinking about, okay, what are unconventional ways we can reach people? Because, I hear it all the time, like ads are hard in the sexual health, women's health space. I mean,
That's
reports,
true.
There's been like FTC, complaints over this with Meta and stuff, getting removed from even Amazon. I know founders that have been removed. So I'm just like, I don't want to put all of my eggs in the social media and the online ad basket. So I'm trying to be like, okay, what's the arsenal? Like, what are we going to do in a worst case situation?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I forgot to mention that, the bigger you get as an advertiser, the more you get around that stuff. Like when I was running ads with Tinder, we had a person we could call if Meta didn't approve something directly because the spend was high enough. When you're an early stage startup, you're just beholden to the algorithm. Right. So I think the key really is to not build your business around paid user acquisition. Again, I think that like it's pretty much it's later. With Google search, you'll be fine because if there's searches for it, they want the ads to come up. So that's why I say start with that. The intent is so high. You can, I have another idea for paid ads. This will be great for you. I don't think I've ever mentioned this on the podcast before. There's a platform called Taboola, Taboola. You don't need to write it down. You'll get the recording of this eventually. But
absolutely.
They merged with another company called Outbrain. But if you go to like CNN or BBC or any of these editorial content websites, at the bottom, you've seen like sponsored articles. It's ads. It's not actually articles or news. But you can write an article and put a picture of you and Doug, how this couple is helping free women from sexual pain. And obviously you can target male and female, but you'll have a much higher click-through rate for women. But also, like you said, men feel a problem like, oh shit, I have this problem. I would love to be able to bring the solution to my partner. So I think you could target them separately, not in the same campaign. So you can see which one works better, but it's very cheap because they land on an article. So you're writing a news story yourself about your company. And then there's hyperlinks to sign up to be an early person to test the product, or if you're a provider or whatever. So it's like 5 cents a click. So you can get your own news story. You can pay for your own PR that way. It's very low quality traffic. It's like, 90% bounce rate, but that means it's 50 cents for a high quality visit. So it's really cheap. So you're not going to get shut down from anything there because I see other startups doing that. I mean, I thought it was my idea like 10 years ago, but I now see other startups. I'll see like 2 female founders back to back, and they'll be like, how these 2 startup founders are disrupting the car auto rental industry or something like that. And then it's an article. And then, so people are conditioned to reading articles when they're on that website, and they just like don't see the word promoted or something, and they click on it. And so there's ways around it. I think like people naturally just go towards, oh, I got to advertise on Meta. And it's the worst. It's the most expensive. It's the most crowded. The users don't want to be bothered with stuff. The problem, the benefit of it is you can just make a video and throw it up really quick. And so it's very expensive. I think Reddit ads are really cheap. Their team kind of sucks. Shout out to Reddit for ghosting me and my client who wants to advertise right now for the last like 3 days. But it's very cheap, and you can target by subreddit, which is really interesting. So you could target by relationship. You could target the relationship subreddit. You could target. There probably isn't a lot in the like sexual pain subreddit. There is one, but again, it's like something that people would want to come in with a throwaway account. They're not comfortable talking about. If there isn't, then you should make that subreddit, by the way. You should make the Facebook group. You should make the LinkedIn group. And then, I mean, maybe not a LinkedIn group. They're not going to have it on their business account, but
Yeah.
Facebook, there probably are like women who experience pain during sex Facebook groups. You want to try and own some of those groups. But even reaching out to the admins of those groups, if they already exist, like we want to do a trial with some women, we'd love to give you a product for free. If someone has created that group and the problem is really serious in their life, that's a person you want to give the product to. So I touched on like 20 different things there, but I think there's a lot more to do there that'll be way more beneficial early stage than the billboard stuff, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. And a lot of women are on those anonymous forums.
I bet.
So many. So it is like I've thought a lot about being an active voice, even if, even on Reddit, you don't even see who I am, but just being consistent, always showing up, kind of building that trust with the people in those spaces.
Not only are you going to profit off of it, you're going to help a lot of people come out of the darkness with that.
Exactly.
I don't know. I read an article. This is totally different, but I read an article that about the amount of people that kill themselves from having herpes or something.
Yeah.
This is a while ago. I just, I get cold sores sometimes. Technically, it's herpes. I'll say it on publicly here. I don't care.
There we go.
80% of people get that stuff. So,
yeah.
But to kill, the reason why people would harm themselves over that or feel so depressed, if it causes depression, I remember reading, is because there isn't someone out there normalizing it and saying, these stats are real. Everybody's dealing with it. You just are shamed because of your small town community or whatever you're in. And so I think that if you're comfortable to do that, you're going to benefit a ton and you're going to help a lot of people. And there's nothing better than making money helping people. There's nothing better. I have turned down opportunities to work with Philip Morris funded startups, and I'll never work with anything that goes against my my personal views. And that's one part, but then the dream is building something that really helps people, and especially if it's a problem. So I definitely would encourage you to just go head first into that, build the podcast studio in the house, make the content, and really be that, because you'll do a lot of good. And you have 4 or 5 months now until the product's really out there. And then there's probably another 6 months where you're going to focus on providers and partners. So you have a year to really be that voice and build that audience until you're really cashing the checks from it. So you give anybody a year of daily posting, and you will need to put some budget behind it. If you're really seeing things organically work, definitely spend, but ignore whatever the platform recommends and bid 10 cents a click, $5 a day spend. You'll still get, you get this preferable algorithm. If you spend a little bit, the delta between spending nothing and a little bit is 100 miles. And then the delta between spending a little bit and a lot is 1 mile, if that makes sense. So
totally.
I tell people run ads all the time, and then also retarget people all the time, even though I don't do it myself, but I'm a much more niche thing. You have a massive market and people are going to dip their feet in oh, what is this? I read this blog article from Taboola that I saw. Again, you can get thousands of visitors for a small budget from that. And then you can retarget them with a more aggressive ad later. That's sign up to our trial, or sign up or give us your email to win. That would be a good pop-up, actually. If you do the promoted content at the bottom of the EBC or whatever, then there's a pop-up in the first 30 seconds when people come to the site that says if you're comfortable, win this life-changing thing. Or it could be download the 10 ways to make sex more pain-free, or less painful, I guess.
Yeah.
That's what we call a lead magnet. Either one of those. You really want to make it the product, probably, is someone wants to get the product, and then they get only one person wins the product in a certain amount of time, but then everybody gets a discount code is usually how we do that. So I think very rarely do I go wildly over time on these, but it's such an exciting thing.
It is.
I'm so proud of what you're working on. I mean, it's hard. The reason why it hasn't been innovated on in so long is because people don't want to talk about it. Or, in general, it's disgusting how small the percentage of female founders there are in tech. It's been several years since I've had a female founder client, and I'm actively trying. It's just such a small percentage, that race. So congratulations to you for making it this far. And anything I can ever do to help you on this mission of helping women be pain-free, I would definitely be down to help. And where can people find out more about Pelva Health?
Yeah, so they can find out about us on www.pelvahealth.com. And then on LinkedIn, I'm sure you can put the links to my LinkedIn.
I will do that. You don't have to say all the HTTP.
Yeah. Let's put all of those in. Yep.
Yeah, they'll be down in the links below. And you can reach out to Kelley Satoski as well if you have questions about the product. She might tell you secretly behind closed doors a little about it. I'm not saying she did that for me, but no, I think that hopefully that this reaches some people that are having the problem and you can continue building alongside them. Kelley, thank you so much for all you do, and thank you for being here. Cheers.
Thank you.
That has been another episode of the Funded Now What podcast with your host, Andrew Lee Miller, brought to you by Growth Experts. If you liked the episode, please subscribe. And if you really liked it, please share with other founders and entrepreneurs. Thanks, and we'll see you in the next episode.